Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I am Jennifer Helm, the Faithful Stamper, and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up! Today I have for you a fun card design. It's not a fun fold, it's not anything fancy, it's just a layout that I saw and I thought was a lot of fun, and I decided to see if I could play with it and create some fun card samples with it. So I'm going to share with you what I did. The original inspiration for this card was shared by Michelle Last, who I believe is a stamping demonstrator over in the UK. And she did something very similar to this. She didn't actually share the whole picture of her card front, but I got enough of an idea that I thought, I really like that. I want to play with it a little bit. So I came up with this. I added this tag here, but she had a couple of the seagulls, and I actually have a little trick to kind of pop these little guys up a little bit. So I'll talk about that soon. But I'm calling this my fun fence design. And so we're going to make something very similar to this because this was my first attempt. But my favorite seagull is actually missing from this card. I'll talk about the stamp set here in just a minute. But I really love this little guy who has the French fries in his mouth. This stamp set is called Friendly Seagulls. And so right now in January 2025, and again next month, Stampin' Up! Has an incentive going on where for every $60 or $120 you spend, you get to pick an item from a special brochure that has freebies, some at the $60 level, some at the $120 level, and these seagulls are actually part of the $60 level. So there are stamp sets, there is designer series paper, ribbon, sequins, so you can pick any item that you want, there's no limit, but I fell in love with these Friendly Seagulls, and so when I saw this card, I thought I have to make it. I have other ideas that I want to make as well. And then our clouds here are from the Under the Moon stamp set. So I'm using these two clouds as background here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I do have to make one adjustment, I realized, but that's okay. I'll talk about that as we go. So our card base is crushed curry, and it is 8.5 by 5.5, but you don't have to use this style of card base. You can use whatever kind of card base you like. That's just going to get folded in half. And then we are going to use a panel that is 5.25 by 4. Just making sure that's the right size, and it is. We'll talk about why a little bit later as well. And we need to create our fence. So I have pecan pie cardstock, and let me find it here. What I did was I took our pecan pie cardstock and I ran it through our Timber 3D embossing folder. You can see it's this beautiful wood grain, and it gives you a beautiful wood grain look to your paper. Now, to give a little more character to the card, I chose to add some ink. So I took a scrap paper and my cardstock. This is just a little scrap, so it's getting a little wrinkled here, but that's okay. Some early espresso ink, so it's a little bit darker than the cardstock itself, and a blending brush. And I just swirled on a little color and then added a little more depth and texture to my cardstock. Hopefully you can see that a little bit there. Just kind of gives it a little more interest. So you could do that, you could leave that part off, up to you. But that is what I did. And then once my cardstock panel was adequately color added to it, I went ahead and cut it. So for our fence rails here, we have one each that is 3/4 of an inch tall. This one's 5.25. This one's 3 3/4, and then we have 2 1/4. And then I have 2 fence posts. These are 3 inches by 1/2 inch, and we're going to cut these down a little bit, but I made them 3 inches long so that I knew I had enough height to play with. So those are our measurements for our fence rails and our posts. 2 posts and then 1 each of the rails. What I realized, and I need to fix here in just a moment, is that there's a difference between this card and this original one where I took my measurements from. And it's the height of this bottom fence rail. I had to lower it a little bit to get this little seagull to fit. So I actually need to trim this down just a little bit. So I have a quick adjustment to make, and this one that's 5 1/4, I'm just going to trim down to 1/2 inch so my seagull's head doesn't get cut off the top of the card. So it all depends on the stamp set that you use. For a lot of them, I did keep the full 3/4, but I just need to trim it down a little bit. So I'm going to show you how to put this together and get your fence look with the posts behind without having a lot of guesswork. So what I'm doing is I brought over my silicone mat. I love this to keep the glue from getting on my table. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the back of my cardstock, just on the very end, just enough to tack it down. So this piece is going to get put along the very bottom, and then I'm going to tack a little bit more on the next strip, give myself just a little room, and press it down, and then do the same with the third strip. So I'm building my fence, but I can still lift these pieces up here like this. So I'm going to take my fence posts and flip them down, face down, so the side I want is not being glued. And I like my mat because my glue is just about as wide as these strips, and that way I'm not getting glue everywhere because I'm really good at doing that. And I'm going to take my fence post and slip it right underneath, and then I'm going to position it where I want, not too far from the end. Got it, oops, give my birds enough room. Press that one down, and then do the same thing over here with this end. As you can see, we're building our fence. Then what I'm going to do is come back with my adhesive, lift up each fence rail, and add some glue to tack them the rest of the way down. I'm being very careful here because my cardstock was trying to rip earlier, and it's doing it again. There we go. For some reason, this glue and embossed cardstock have a love-hate relationship. There we go. So isn't that cute? Nice fence look. You could do all sorts of things with this design. I was actually just thinking you could do more blending, make it look like a scene in the background, and put something simple on the top post and put your words here. Wish I'd thought of that before I'd gone live. That's okay. All right. So now we're going to start stamping. I'm going to bring over my Stampin' Pierce mat because my stamps are photopolymer, which means they're clear and they don't have a cushion built in. And I want to make sure they stamp adequately. I'm going to add a little bit more glue back to this edge because this top one wants to move. It's getting on my nerves. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to card making, I have discovered. All right, so we're going to start with our clouds. And what? Here we go. I thought, what happened to my piece of scrap paper? I just had it. I want to put a piece of scrap paper down because I'm going to stamp a little bit off the edge. So I have Smoky Slate ink. I think it would have been fun to do something a little bit brighter, maybe crumb cake. And actually, I'm going to come back to that cloud. I want to start with this one. This guy's going to go over here. I said crumb cake. I didn't mean crumb cake. I meant pool party, something brighter, blue. Crumb cake would be brown. That would be kind of odd. It's been a day around here. Okay, so there we go. There are our clouds in Smoky Slate. And I'm not doing anything else with Smoky Slate, so I'm going to put that away. And now I'm going to stamp my seagulls. For that, I'm going to use Tuxedo Black Memento ink. This is the ink you want to use when you're using your Stampin' Blends, our markers, our alcohol markers. And what I'm going to do is start with my seagulls. And so I'm going to start with my French fry guy. ink him up and make him look like he's standing up here on the fence. We'll talk about the cloud positioning in a minute and why that does not matter. Next up, we have, I'm going to call this guy the Squawker. He's standing over there. And then last but not least, this little guy. I've apparently decided they're all boys. And there we go. Next up, I have to explain where the French fries came from. So the little French fry stamp is going to go right there on top of the fence, so we know where he got his French fries from. And then one finishing touch, we want to add a little birds flying in the sky. Make sure they're flying the correct way. I almost stamped them upside down earlier. A little more character. Okay. Now while I have my Stampin' Pierce mat out, I'm going to go ahead and do the inside and the envelope. So for the envelope, I've flipped back and forth between the French fries and the French fry guy, so I think I'm going to go with that seagull. He just makes me laugh with his little winky face holding those French fries. If you've been to the beach or a beachy area, you know how those seagulls like food. And then, let's see, my interior panel here. We're going to stamp the French fry emblem on the corner, and I'll probably come back and color that later. But you guys know how to color. You're going to see me do a little bit here in a minute. And then I put two stamps together, so the I Love You More Than is one stamp and French fries is the other. But I stack them together so they work on a card, all in one sentence. And I think that's all my stamping, so I'm going to put this ink away. And then we shall continue on. So back to the front panel. We're going to do some coloring, but I'm not going to bore you to death and color all these birds because I've already done some of that, and I'll explain why in a minute. But you can see here I kind of stamped with the cloud coming right through his head, and this guy looks like he's eating the clouds or breathing fire. But that's okay because when I add the colored pieces, it's not going to be noticeable. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to take Pumpkin Pie and just very quickly color in their happy little feet. Like so. And then we're going to color the French fry container here. So I have Daffodil Delight for the French fries. And the great part about this is it's a very detailed stamp, but it's not complicated to color. You just need a little bit of color. Real Red for our French fry container. This makes it look like a particular chain. Actually, now that I think of it, a lot of the French fry containers are red, aren't they? So insert your favorite French fries here. And then I have Light Pecan Pie for the tiny little bit of burger you can see here. And then Light Crumb Cake for the bun. It's just enough you can kind of see what's going on there. All right. And that's all the coloring I'm going to do because I'll show you how I finagle these birds here in a minute. So we'll go ahead and glue this on the front of our card. No special adhesive needed. So here we go. Now on the inside of the card, I did something a little bit different. I don't like plain cards. I like my cards to have a little pizzazz. I'm not really that much of a fancy pants person, but when it comes to card making, I like them to look a little special. So I actually took a panel of basic black. This is 5 1/4 by 4. And I'm going to put this inside the card for kind of a little added pop when they open the interior panel. And then the sentiment panel that I stamped is actually 5 by 3 3/4. So just cut down a little bit. And as I said, I probably will come back and color that French fry container, but I'm not going to bore you with that just now. Okay. So So to finish off the card, I pre-stamped, colored, and then fussy cut our little seagull friends, just their bodies. I wasn't about to fussy cut those little legs. But by coloring their feet here, I can add their bodies on top. I could glue them flat, or I'm going to add dimensionals to give them a little bit of dimension, pop them off the page a little bit. And that way they still have colored feet, but I didn't have to fussy cut like a crazy woman. And let's see, my dimensionals here. And these guys weren't too difficult to fussy cut. I have seen some people who are fussy cutting the wings like separately and adding even more dimensions. I was not feeling quite that ambitious. But the great thing about crafting is you can do whatever your heart desires. And then all you have to do is peel your dimensionals off and the backings off, not the whole thing. And then play match the seagull. And so there's one. My dimensional backings are really hanging on tonight. Here's my favorite. And then one more. Okay, and there is our cute little Love You More Than French Fries card. So just something fun, a little something different. But I wanted to show you some samples where you can use fences in different ways, and then you can turn it into something that's not even a fence, but still kind of have the same effect. So let's get to the samples. So, first of all, I changed the orientation on these next couple cards, so you don't have to stick with your horizontal orientation. You can change it to the vertical as well. But the fencing didn't quite work. So what I did was I still used the embossing folder, but I skipped the fence posts and just went with the rails. These are all the 3/4 of an inch height. And I just staggered them to suit my purposes. These are die cuts from our beautiful pack of Storybook Friends, I believe it is, or Storybook Garden DSP. There's paper, but there is also 2 sheets of these die cuts. I added a little label. Pardon me. Added a stamped image and a retired image for my inside of the card. So there's one. And then I made this version as well, more of an Easter card. Here you can get a better look at those staggered kind of stairs. Our happy little friends here, Easter greetings, and again, our little friend on the inside. So you have alternatives for this card set. And it's great for any occasion because here is a baby card. I did snag a off-brand stamp set, but you can see our little birds or owls, whatever you want to call them. But instead of using embossed cardstock, I used wood grain designer series paper here. That is in our annual catalog for my fence, only 2 rails because it suited my logistics here with the birds. And then a little message inside. Now I changed up the fence a lot on this next card. So here is our cutest cow bundle. So our cow has his little friends, the chick and the rooster visiting, our cloud punch, milk jug. Here my fence is using that embossed cardstock, but it's just 1/2-inch strips built basically to suit my needs. Milk it for all it's worth. Cute little punny card there. And then these last 2 are my favorites, I think, and I couldn't decide which of the images I like best from the stamp set, so I made one of each. Here, using our In Colors and a different embossing folder, I used our Starstruck embossing folder, which is another Celebration item, and just staggered them. Have the images that I stamped and colored and die cut. Treat yourself. Kept the inside very simple. Thought this would be great with a gift card inside. I could even make that a gift card holder. And then I like these flower pots too, so I made another card using a similar or a different image in the same set. This is our Attention Shoppers stamp set and our happy little flower pots. And there we go. So you can use kind of the fence effect, but not an actual fence for bright happy cards, or you can build a fence to suit your needs like we did in the cow card. So I hope you enjoyed learning that simple technique just to make a fun fence. I'm sure I could run with a lot more ideas. I was thinking anything with baskets or flower pots you could line up on this one. I really wanted to use the other storybook set, but the flower pots and watering cans were a little too big for what I was thinking. Maybe if I'd made a bigger card, I could have done that. But I stuck with the A2 size. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, you can check out my website at thefaithfulstamper.stampinup.net. If you are like me and you're in the US and would like a paper copy of the catalog, if you don't have a demonstrator you're currently working with, please get in touch with me. I'm happy to send you one. You can find me over on Facebook as The Faithful Stamper. And if you haven't subscribed here, I'd love to have you as part of the community. You can click the notification bell and receive a little notification each time a video is posted here on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and happy crafting.